What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, following the NFL draft, combing through the latest news and rumors for Sean and George Paton when it comes to the trade market, when it comes to free agency, and, of course, Denver's draft picks. So, we're going to get this show on the road in a few minutes, but I know not everyone is prompt and on time. So, shout out your city for me in the chat. Let me know where you are tuning in from. It is Broncos country for a reason. So, whether you are a new subscriber, whether you're a longtime subscriber, get in the chat. Let me know where you are watching from. Would love to give a shout out to your hometown here, as Casey is tuning in from Tacoma, Washington. We've got Timothy and MP Jenkins. MP Jenkins, shout out to you, man. A legendary performance during our live NFL draft coverage. David's in the chat right now. 2 straight seasons with Sutton rumors. I don't create the rumors. I just share the rumors. David Dell, live from New Iberia, Louisiana, the 337. David was in your neck of the woods not too long ago, hanging out in New Orleans at the beginning of the month. Moses is in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Nathaniel is in Pueblo, Colorado. Jace Bayer's in Columbus, Georgia. We've got Honolulu, Hawaii here. Michael is in the PA state capital. Kingsley, also in Hawaii. I have no idea if you guys are on the same island or not. Mark is in Colorado Springs. Boxcar from Denver. Brett is in Mississippi. Continue getting into the chat right now and shouting out your city. Now, the days and even the weeks after the NFL draft, it's kind of like an extended period of when the March Madness bracket comes out. I just never get tired of looking at their draft picks, right? We've spent all this time learning about these prospects, doing a bunch of mock drafts, and then it's all said and done. So, revisiting Denver's 2025 draft picks, Jahdae Barron, Texas corner, to lead it off, followed by RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant on the offensive end of the football. LSU defensive end Savion Jones with Alabama's Q Robinson afterwards. The Florida punter, which, listen, you may not have been a big fan of Denver's early selections, and if you fall into that bucket, going punter and basketball player for your last 2 picks is probably not going to be the icing on top for Denver's draft. But how would you grade the Broncos draft class? It is our pinned poll today, so get in the chat right now. I think in my draft grades video, I gave it a C+, C minus. It was something in the C's. And I think it's only natural that when a day or 2 passes after the draft, you start to be a little bit more optimistic, right? You start to feed your timeline full of highlight clips and things like that, and you search for confirmation of it's a good pick. We all want it to be good picks, right? So you then pursue information that tells you those were good selections. And you more or less bathe in it. I mean, you don't bathe in it. You completely marinate in it. So I'm going to give Denver's draft a C+. And no one likes the Debbie Downer after the draft. And every single draft class is an A until it's not. And there are plenty of examples of, yeah, a lot of Broncos draft classes are not all A's. But different regime now with Sean Payton in charge. And, hey, Payton had a lot of success in New Orleans, of course, but not all of his picks were, home runs. So I'm going to stick a little bit towards my gut here and go with a C+. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section as Kyle's tuning in from Utah. I've got Tainted in Idaho. Ryan trading for a running back. Ryan, if you want to ask that question for our mailbag, slap a hashtag Broncos on at the end of it, and we'll throw it on screen at the end of the show to show everyone during our mailbag. So if you want to be a part of our mailbag, use hashtag Broncos or Super Chat. We'll put those instructions on screen for you guys to see. And if you Super Chat, we guarantee that your question, your take, your idea skips the line and jumps to the front and is thrown on for everyone watching to see. Or just use hashtag Broncos. If you're unable to Super Chat, and producer Moose will pick his favorite questions for our mailbag. All right. Coming up on today's show, latest news and rumors surrounding Courtland Sutton and a potential trade, which, listen, I know we're all somewhat exhausted when it comes to trade rumors for a while there, Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, and now Courtland Sutton. But I do want to share some of the buzz out there after the draft. And then I've got a free agent target that was linked to Denver from CBS Sports. So a lot of good stuff to get to and our mailbag like we just talked about. But let's not dilly-dally. Let's get right into the meat and potatoes of today's live show. We're going to talk all about these 3 segments. So we'll get this thing going here. One more reminder, use hashtag Broncos or Super Chat to skip the line for our mailbag. David's in Louisiana. David Youngkin's giving them a B+. Gabe is in Sacramento. Daddy Frank, Denver wins Super Bowl 60, 10-year anniversary from Super Bowl 50. Moses, I trust the front office. See, here's the thing with the I trust the front office line, or Sean Payton knows more than you do. Yes, Sean Payton 100% knows more than I do. 110%, 120, 130. John Gruden knows more than I do. John Gruden, 100%, 110%, 120%. I was in college watching the Raiders just ruin draft after draft after draft, and I could have told you from my fraternity house futon, yeah, Cleveland Farrell seems like a bit of a reach at top 5. But John Gruden knows more than I do. So how does that make sense then? Listen, there's a lot that goes into a player working out. I think it's often about the fit and the team and whatnot and the coaching staff when they get there. But just because a coach knows more than you do does not mean they are going to have better picks than you have in your mind. So I reject that reasoning. If you want to say it's a great draft class because X, Y, and Z for RJ Harvey and Jahdae Barron, all right, that's a good argument we can have then. But if it's just, well, they know more than you do, well, in that case, then I guess every single pick is always going to be better than whatever I think because they always know more than I do. But for some reason, not all their picks are always good picks. So it doesn't add up year after year. It's as if everyone just gets amnesia and forgets they've had bad picks before. But then this year's draft comes around, they're like, well, they know more than you do, so who are you to say? Well, they knew more than I did when they took Damon Arnett in round 1, but I still knew that was a bad pick right there. Just like how they knew more than I did when I said, probably should go Justin Jefferson here over Jalen Reagor. And look where they are right now. Okay, let's talk trade rumors, shall we? Here we go. We've got some Courtland Sutton trade rumors and buzz out there after the NFL draft. Now, quick disclaimer, I too am exhausted when it comes to the somewhat never-ending Sutton trade rumors going back all the way 2 off seasons ago here. But following the NFL draft, I've seen a lot of other teams, specifically the Dallas Cowboys, poke around Sutton's availability and the idea of acquiring him from Denver because he is entering the final year of his contract, and the Broncos took a wide receiver in round 3 who has a lot of similarities to Sutton's game. I think I called him the Kirkland version of Courtland Sutton. So, with that in mind, I could see why other teams are poking around in terms of Sutton's availability and why Denver might be a little bit more receptive to a trade given his contract situation and the fact that Pat Bryant was their pick at 74 in the draft. Similar to Sutton in size, maybe not quite as big, but 6'2", 204 pounds, so a relatively big target. He was a multi-year starter for the Fighting Illini, second team All-Big Ten in 2024. The thing you got to know about Bryant is he adjusts well to catches. He's got a nice wide catch radius, and when he gets the ball in his hands, he doesn't have cinder block for feet. He doesn't have incredible long speed, but he can definitely do some damage in the open field. Comes off a 984-yard season, 10 touchdowns, just 1 drop off of 78 targets and 54 receptions. Initially, I was confused by the pick, perplexed, if you will. Just didn't see Pat Bryant going in round 3. Saw him go in round 5 for a lot of mock drafts, but this is a clear-cut example of Denver doesn't care what Mel Kiper's big board or Dane Brugler's big board had to say. They're going to go off their gut. They're going to go off their eye test and their own evaluation, and they're going to block out all the outside noise, which I don't hate that idea. I've put a couple things out there that I'd say I want on my tombstone, and one of them is when the college football season ends, if I were to be an NFL GM or an NFL owner, I would take 2 or 3 scouts and ship them to an island in the southern Atlantic Ocean. And I'd keep them there until a day before the NFL draft and then bring them back and go, Tell us what you think of this draft class, because I want to freeze them and preserve their thoughts before they all get muddied with combine interviews and 40-yard dashes and just silly stories that come up when all the games have already been played, and yet somehow we forget the most important thing when it comes to a player evaluation. The tape, what they did in the fall when they were playing football. Not, hey, what was their 3-cone drill at Lucas Oil in February? For some reason, we allow that to become bigger than what they did in October at home against Ohio State with 2 minutes to go in a tied ball game. So I am okay and respect when teams go with, this is our guy because we didn't let outside noise filter into our evaluations. I like the idea of teams going, to the beat of their own drummer to a degree. Sure, a little bit of outside noise, but more like external thoughts is not a bad thing. But also, hey, not letting PFF mock draft simulator dictate your draft. Now, I did come across this snippet from an article from Mike Silver at The Athletic. If you want a little bit more confirmation that this pick was a good one, you'll either love this or you'll be terrified by it. But this is Liam Cohn, the Jags head coach, and he talked about really wanting to get RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant, and Denver took both those players from Jacksonville. So if you are searching for confirmation bias of this being a good pick because another team wanted those guys, may I interest you in the Jacksonville Jaguars? On one hand, that sounds like a pretty good thing. On the other hand, is it good if the Jags wanted them? Because that's not a very good track record. May not be a bad idea to pursue players the Jags are not pursuing because they have a horrible track record. But they've got a new head coach and GM, so things could be very, very different. But the reason why we're talking about Courtland Sutton today is with Pat Bryant being a third-round draft pick and Sutton entering that final year of his contract, if a team makes an offer that Denver deems fair, now that they have a receiver on the roster from day 2 of the draft, are they more receptive and more open to making a trade? Whereas maybe before they could get an offer that was above market, but they go, we can't give up Sutton. Even if you are willing to give us something a little bit more than what we valued him at, if we lose Sutton, we've got nobody. We've got Devon Vele, Troy Franklin, and Marvin Mims, 3 young, somewhat inexperienced and unknown up-and-coming receivers. But maybe with a third-rounder and Pat Bryant, the Broncos go, hey, we actually could manage without Sutton. And so let's kick the tires on a trade, or let's pick up the phone on a trade, whereas earlier it was a non-starter because they didn't have anyone there. And there are some good free agent receivers out there, so if they really want to get, adventurous, they could trade Sutton and then sign Amari Cooper and go, what's better? Courtland Sutton, last year of his deal, we don't want to extend him, or a third-round pick from Dallas next year and Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore. I think it's the first one still, because I don't think you're going to get a third. And I think Courtland Sutton is playing maybe the best football of his NFL career right now, and I don't want to rock the boat a little bit when it comes to Bo Nix's development. So I don't think, and this has been, the story of the last 2 years, I don't believe Courtland Sutton will be traded, but I believe there will be inquiries with the addition of Pat Bryant and Sutton on the final year of his contract. The only way I really see a trade going down is if contract negotiation talks go south. If Sutton has a number in mind, Denver's not even in that same zip code, and Sutton holds out, and a team calls and says, hey, can we talk to his agent? Can we tell them what we'd give him in a contract? And we'll offer you a third-round pick for him. At that point, the Broncos might go, well, he's not showing up to camp. And this is obviously all hypothetical in the future, but he's not showing up to camp here. We got a good offer on the table. We've got a third-round pick who we think could fill that role nicely. This isn't really what we thought we'd get to at this stage, but a lot of times you see contract negotiations go south, and then a trade is conceived out of it, and it's not what anyone really intended for at the beginning, but it's the end result. Now, let's talk about what that negotiation could look like and what Sutton could be looking for in terms of dollars and cents. He's not going to get top 10 highest paid wide receiver money, and I don't think he's asking for that. But I'm just throwing it out there as a starting point, a reference point for what that could look like. Right now, Sutton is the 24th highest paid receiver in football. My gut tells me he wants that to get down towards around 17 to 20. I would like to think he knows at 29 he's not going to get a huge payday, but Calvin Ridley got a big payday, and he's the same. He's older than Courtland Sutton. So maybe he does push for the Calvin Ridley contract. I think he's probably pushing more so for the Mike Evans contract. And we'll look at what that number looks like in just a second. But Javonte Barron, the first-round pick by Denver, his jersey is available for pre-sale at chatsports.com/Barron. So if you want to get a brand new jersey and you want to have a unique jersey, because everyone's going to have by next season a Bo Nix jersey or a Pat Surtain jersey. But if you want to stand out a little bit and you want to be, a bit of a head turner, get a Barron jersey. I put this link in the comment section down below along with the description of the video. So here's my stab at what a Sutton contract extension could look like. 3 years, he's 29, he'll turn 30 in October, $63 million. That's an average of $21 million a season. That makes him the 20th highest paid receiver in football. Jumps up a handful of spots. Something wild, right? It's not like Denver is all of a sudden sinking top 10, top 15 money into him. And for Sutton, at 29 years old, he gets $63 million. Let's say 2/3 of that is guaranteed. Let's say $40 million guaranteed. So it's a 2-year, $40 million contract. Not too shabby for a 29-year-old. That would be his third deal with the Broncos, including his rookie contract. Yeah, I think that could be something that both parties would be interested in. Unless Denver has the heebie-jeebies about giving $40 million to a near 30-year-old wide receiver, given that Amari Cooper was 29 years old last offseason, turned 30 in June, and he fell off a cliff. So we're going to look at, is it real, that 30-year-old mark for receivers? It is for running backs, not so much for wide receivers. And before we get to that, I do want you guys to weigh in at this point here because I blabbered for long enough. Should Denver extend Courtland Sutton? Give me a yes or give me a no. I am down for it. I am choosing to be optimistic. I'm choosing to believe that Courtland is not going to fall off a cliff. Could be wrong. It would be an expensive, mistake to make here, but there's a decent amount of track record out there that just because you're 30 doesn't mean you're no longer productive. Now, Courtland Sutton, I think, can look at company like last year Devontae Adams, who at 32 years old had over 1,000 yards in a bad Jets and Raiders offense. Calvin Ridley, with Will Levis throwing to the other team more than his team, putting up 1,000 yards. Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, all guys 30 and over, all had, not as good as they once were, but all had pretty good seasons. So, yeah, $20 million definitely sounds a little bit on the richer end here. But if it means that Bo Nix continues to have his number one target going into year 2, a big year for him to not have a sophomore slump like C.J. Stroud, I'm willing to sink some of Walton Penner's money into that. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you haven't yet, scroll on down, click that subscribe button, and I'll see everyone next time. All right, should Denver extend Courtland Sutton? Let me know in the comment section below. Nathan says yes. Mark says yes. Boxcar says yes. Next up on the show, we're going to talk about a free agent target for Denver out of the Cleveland Browns backfield. Ryan, we'll get to that in a moment. Mark, unless very good compensation for a trade, then yes, extend. Right. If you get a first or a second, I think we can all agree that might be worth it. Third is kind of teetering because while third always sounds good, you saw what a third could be, right? If you didn't like the Pat Bryant pick, for example, who's to say the next third-round pick won't be Pat Bryant? So we always like to think that every single draft pick will result in a guaranteed hit. No, it's a tiered lottery system where you've got really good odds in the first round and then it decreases after that. So a third, you're definitely going to have a conversation about it. A fourth, I'm going to pass. I understand that maybe he walks in free agency and you could get something for him now. But if he does walk in free agency and he does sign a nice contract, you're going to get a nice comp pick in the next year's draft. The Steelers just got 4 comp picks, rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6. No reason why Denver can't get one. They got a 7th. So why not in 2027, because it's always 1 year in the future, get a 3rd or 4th round comp pick out of it? Who says no? You can get a 3rd after all. Sure, maybe a few spots later. But you also get Courtland Sutton services for a whole year. Mailbag is coming up in about 20 or so minutes. Use hashtag Broncos. I'm going to call on 3 people right now to get a question in. I want to see Judson Cake. I want to see Nathaniel Pepper. And I want to see Jace Bear get a question in. So use hashtag Broncos or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, you skip the line. We guarantee your question, your comment, your take gets on screen for everyone watching to see. So those 3 people and anyone else that has a question, use hashtag Broncos in the chat. All right, let's talk about free agency next up. And Nick Chubb as a potential target for Denver, which this caught me off guard when I read this article from CBS Sports. But if I read it, then you're going to read it too, because we're one big happy family. All right, are we ready to rumble? Here we go. Let's talk all about a potential free agent target for the Broncos at running back. Could we see Nick Chubb make his way over to the Denver Broncos? We're going to talk about this on today's show. Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here. I'm reacting to an article I saw from CBS Sports following the NFL draft, which linked a couple of notable free agents to some specific teams. And they had Nick Chubb going to the Denver Broncos. So let's talk about this possibility, because initially I was very resistant to this idea, given that, well, for starters, Nick Chubb, a 2nd-round draft pick out of Georgia by the Cleveland Browns, has started to have a little bit of an injury problem recently, right? That's probably putting it on the lighter side. Suffered multiple torn knee ligaments in week 2 of 2023. He's only played in 10 games since the start of 2023. Last year, he played 8 games after missing the first half of the season. And in those 8 games, it was not very inspiring football. Now, Nick Chubb, different player. Nick Chubb did have a very impressive workout that got posted online. And we can slip that clip in here right now for you guys to see, because I thought it definitely caught my attention for that's a guy that you probably want on your roster. Okay, so Nick Chubb just going through all the hurdles and even poking his head through the ceiling tile at the very end. And after seeing that, there was clearly a message being sent to the Browns and 31 other teams. I still got it. The Browns drafted 2 running backs in the draft, Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. So to me, that kind of signals what their plan is at running back moving forward. So if the Browns don't bring back Chubb, to me, this video he put out there is a very good resume, or a very good, overall profile as to where his knee is at, given 2-year recovery from that ACL injury in September of 2023. And I wouldn't be shocked if a couple of GMs go, whoa, after seeing that, we have a whole different outlook on this entire situation. Now, the link for the Broncos comes in from CBS Sports, who said this: the Broncos are an intriguing spot for the veteran. The organization did add RJ Harvey in the 2nd round out of UCF, but Chubb could come aboard and add some depth to the backfield alongside Jaleel McLaughlin. So after seeing that right there, I thought, all right, I guess there is some truth here after watching that workout clip of his, and the fact that you're maybe a little bit reliant on a rookie running back and RJ Harvey to be a big workhorse back for you. And you've got highlight reel Jaleel, who I think is shown to be a competent RB 2 to 3, but maybe not a, primary ball carrier. And with a rookie, maybe that is the plan early going here. My overall outlook on the whole thing is Nick Chubb going to Denver seems like a long shot. We are filming this during our live show, which airs Tuesday afternoons. if I had to put money down, I think the Chicago Bears will land Nick Chubb. They needed a running back. They didn't get one in the draft. That seems like a Ryan Poles type of acquisition. And I don't think there's going to be a reunion in Cleveland. I won't completely dismiss the possibility of the Broncos adding Chubb, but one has to envision that Sean Payton has a vision for his running back room. And I think it's a committee backfield. And there's a chance that that's what Chubb is going to be moving forward for however many years he has left in the NFL, that he's just going to be a part of a rotation. But Chubb's a bell cow back. And when they took RJ Harvey, I think it was because they wanted him to work within their system of spreading the touches around between McLaughlin, Harvey, Bidet, Estime. And so I'm not really sure where Chubb fits in for that running back room. But if Nick Chubb is unsigned in August, training camp rolls around, and the coaches get to see the players with the pads on after a week, they're going to have a much better idea as to what they have and what they need. And after a week of practice, they might go, hey, this ain't it. Our running back room was bad last year. We moved down from Javonte Williams. We added a rookie in the draft. That's been the only addition so far. If RJ Harvey were to go down, we're right back to where we started last year, if not worse, since Pookie, while he may not have been what we all hoped he would have been, was probably the best running back on this team last year. So that's where I could see Chubb sneaking onto a team like Denver's roster, but not until I think August. August at the earliest. I don't think Denver coming out of the draft goes, hey, we just drafted a running back at 60, and we took one last year. Let's stunt their development, and let's go get Nick Chubb right now. I don't quite see it. So would you sign Nick Chubb? I think Chubb's going to be a good player. I think he's going to bounce back well from that ACL injury, 2 years removed from it. And watching that clip, it's hard not to get fired up about it. But I don't think the fit in Denver is right. So on one hand, I do think he'll be a good player. On the other hand, I'd like to kind of see how this young running back room plays out at first and then readjust from there if you need to. So Chubb, I think, will bounce back, but you got to go with the youth movement here. Got to go with the youngins. I want to see what Harvey can bring to the table. Right. One of the biggest advantages to taking a rookie running back is force feeding them a little bit early on while their legs are still kind of fresh, and you've got them on a rookie contract. You lose that pro when you add a veteran running back after drafting one in the top 60. All right. We hit 35,000 subscribers on the channel over the NFL draft weekend. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's already clicked that sub button down below. If you haven't yet, go ahead and do so. If you have, show me or tell me when you subscribe to the channel by commenting in the comment section below. It's just a fun way for me to know who's been subbed the longest. And for those of you that are a little unsure if you want to give me your subscription, which is completely free, there's a lot of really good recommendations in the comment section with how long people have been subbed for. All right. With that being said, let's talk a little bit Denver Broncos roster needs post-draft, because if they do go with a free agent running back like Nick Chubb, I would be a little bit surprised, but just talking about the position as a whole, the need as a whole, there's not really a gaping hole. The best I can come up with is maybe linebacker. Only because Dre Greenlaw gave us all a little bit of an injury scare when it came out that he had a quad strain. It was first somewhat erroneously or incorrectly reported that there was a tear, and then it was downgraded to a strain. And I think everyone's kind of just going, all right, it's not very severe, and it should not cause him to miss much, if at all, the 2025 NFL season. It doesn't appear that it will require surgery. Obviously, the human body can be a little bit fluid, so maybe some pictures of his leg come back in a week and things change. But he is expected to be ready for the start of the 2025 season. I'm not concerned. You shouldn't be concerned. But it would be somewhat naive if we did not remember who we are talking about. And we're talking about someone who has had some injury history in their career. Last year, Greenlaw missed basically the entire season. Only played at the very end there because he suffered a torn Achilles in the previous Super Bowl against the Chiefs. 2021, he only played in 3 games. So, yeah, he's been up and down, which is why I don't think we can completely dismiss that. Hey, if you are curious, what does Denver need to do in free agency? Like, what are the last little gaps need to be plugged in? Right now, the Broncos are going into the season with 2 starting inside linebackers who either are coming off an ACL injury or coming off a quad injury. You got 2 starters injured before you even see the field. Maybe the Broncos decide, you know what, let's add a veteran for an insurance policy. So we'll talk more about that in just a second here, but I do want to tell you guys about our awesome deal over at Fanatics, which is this Javonte Barron rookie jersey. Go to chatsports.com/Barron. Once you pre-order the jersey, they'll mail it out to you when Barron selects his number. So use this link, chatsports.com/Barron. I put it in the comments and the description of today's video. So as I was saying, you could look at this as a little bit of a red flag given that you got Greenlaw injured right now. Maybe not very serious, but still something to keep an eye on. And your other starting inside linebacker, Alex Singleton, he's 30-plus years old, isn't he? And he's coming off a torn ACL a year ago. Yeah, you got 2 starters injured before you even get to mandatory minicamp, before you even get to April. So I'm willing to be optimistic and go, Singleton's going to bounce back fine. He is a tank. He's going to work his tail off in rehab. And Greenlaw is just a strain. It's nothing to freak out, nothing to panic over. But if you really wanted to know what does Denver need after the draft, I looked long and hard at the depth chart for a spot to upgrade. And there are spots where sure you could be better, but they've made additions to those spots, like running back with RJ Harvey. You got to see that through, right? You can't just bail before he even touches the field. Same goes for like wide receiver. You added Pat Bryant. You got to see that thing through a little bit more. So if there is something, it would be maybe inside linebacker given the injuries at that spot. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure you click that subscribe button down below if you haven't yet, and I'll catch up with you all next time. All right, mailbag time coming up next. If you guys have a question, don't be afraid to hop in the chat right now and use hashtag Broncos like Danny just did, Demented Tree, Recklaw. Love it. Love it. You guys are killing it. Open checkbook. If PD could make one more big-ish free agent signing, who does he take? Danny, we can include that question in our mailbag. But as I was just saying, there's not really a need at a spot. Like, if you just want to sign a big name for the sake of, hey, let's get in the headlines for a day or two, all right, we can come up with some names right there. But if you're looking for a guy that can really fill a void for you, I don't want to say this Broncos roster is perfect, but this Broncos roster has made additions at every single need this offseason. So whoever you're signing, you're kind of just robbing snaps away from the player you already added. Like if you wanted to sign a wide receiver, okay. But don't you want to see the development of Pat Bryant, Devon Vele, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin? I do. I know those guys haven't shown it yet, but you got to give them the chance to at least. But I'll give you a name. So we will look at the questions you guys have. If you have a question or a take you are dying to ask, super chat, and then we'll throw it on for everyone watching to see. We got 230 people tuned in right now, 79 likes. Can we get up to 100 likes before we start this next mailbag? Click that thumbs up button. We are 20 likes away now, so help us continue to grow as a channel and like today's stream. Atlantis Gaming, first off, I noticed the new profile picture. Second off, I like the question. All right, we got Juan Luis Martinez with the question. We got a boatload of questions. Michael with one. Appreciate everyone for getting into the chat. Moose, you let me know when we're ready to roll, and we'll get this mailbag going. Like Judson, we signed a UDFA nose tackle. Like, I mean, nose tackle could be a spot I'd argue for because I really wanted them to draft one. But while UDFA should not be looked at as the end-all, be-all, those are guys that, hey, you clearly had some level of interest in. You kind of want to see how that plays out a little bit, unless there's just a stud out there that you just don't understand how he's still available. All right. Aaron, you got to put hashtag Broncos, Aaron. You just have the word hashtags in there. So, Aaron, throw Broncos after the hashtag. All right, mailbag time coming up right now. What's going on, Broncos country? It is mailbag time here on the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson answering your questions from our live show, which aired on Tuesday afternoon. Our first question coming in from Michael. Broncos still need a vet running back. What do you think? So we put a video out, or at least as long as it didn't get cucked by some Nick Chubb signing news, we did put a video out about the Broncos potentially signing Nick Chubb, as CBS Sports linked him. I'm going to push back on the idea. And I've been, the conductor, the director of get a running back to Denver this offseason with a premium asset like an early draft pick. And while 60 is not late, it's maybe not as early as I would have hoped for. However, you made your bed, now you got to sleep in it. You picked RJ Harvey in round 2. You took Audric Estime last year in the draft. I think you got to see what you have in these guys, right? I don't think it's sustainable, just every single offseason. Well, before we let the young guy prove himself, we're going to sign a veteran. I want to see if RJ Harvey can play, right? Give him the snaps, give him the opportunity. And if you learn halfway through August that he doesn't really have it yet, then you go out and sign someone. Sure, you run the risk of halfway through August there may not be someone there for you. But I don't think your roster and your development is ever going to progress is if every single time in May or March or April you're like, we're going to sign a veteran, and we're going to stunt the growth of the young guy we just drafted or signed. Michael, appreciate your question. Dementor Tree, how much compensation would you need to be okay with giving Sutton to the Chiefs? Can't help but feel contested catcher like Sutton would be Mahomes' dream receiver. All right, I'm going to look at this as whatever pick they give you, you should assume is going to be the last pick in the round. So if I say second, in your mind, you probably start to think guys who go in the middle of the second round. No. Think pick 64. Well, you got Nick Bonito, so you can't find good talent there. It'd have to be a second. At least, that's pick 64 in my mind. Anything better than that is a cherry on top. But I'm going to assume the Chiefs are going to give Denver the last pick in the draft. So, a second. And at 64, I'm willing to take that chance. Mario, why RJ Harvey over Caleb Johnson? So there's two big pros for Harvey over Johnson. One is speed. Caleb is a little bit of a slower back, a little bit more reminiscent of like David Montgomery. Harvey's got great burst. He's got good acceleration. He's got good open field speed. Not saying Johnson's slow, but Harvey's faster. There's no question about that. The other element that Harvey has over Johnson is, I think, a higher upside in pass catching skills. Johnson did not showcase that much at all for the Iowa Hawkeyes last year. Harvey more so for the UCF Knights. So I think the speed and the receiving element is probably what put Harvey over Johnson for Sean Payton's big board. Plus, if Payton wants to do a committee-type backfield, he wants to find guys that stand out in one area, maybe not in other areas, but he's got other backs for that. And Caleb Johnson, I think, is a bell cow, well-rounded back, but maybe doesn't spike in one area. He wants a spike, because he's got spikes all over the place. And together, he's got a perfect running back for any kind of combination. Mario, thank you so much for your question. Moving on to our next question coming in. Michael, Matthew, your favorite NFL draft pick and least NFL draft pick the Broncos made in the 2025 NFL draft. I'll do you one more. I'll do Broncos and just general NFL. So my favorite Broncos draft pick, I'm going to go with Javonte Barron. I was a bit resistant at first, a bit skeptical at first, but we've always said, take the best player available. You are lying to yourself if you have never said that once to your friend in a bar, in a conversation, on the school bus, wherever. And at 20, Javonte Barron was the best player available. Least favorite pick, I want to be wrong about it, but it's RJ Harvey. And I have, naturally after the draft, you try and talk yourself into all the picks the team makes, but no, that's still a pick that I'm going to see it to believe it first. And I want to, but favorite overall NFL draft pick, by the way, taking into account value, I'll go with two right now. The Falcons getting Jalen Walker at 15. I think he's going to be awesome. And then two more. One, Seahawks getting Nicky Manwari in the second round, and the Cardinals getting Will Johnson. And least favorite, Saints getting Kelvin Banks. He stinks. Michael, thank you. Rec Law 55. Can you look at Jaquan McMillan PFF rankings for last season and see whether he should start or Barron at nickel? Yeah, I like how I'm just being a PFF slut for you right now, but I'm happy to do it. So let's check out what McMillan was last year. On the fly, Jaquan McMillan. Oh, here's his coverage grades in last year. Jaquan McMillan, though, last year, he ranked 72nd out of 116 corners. In 2023, he ranked 47th out of 127 corners. And then there are the rest of his stats, including his PFF coverage grade. So my money would be on early in camp, Jaquan McMillan's out there with the first team defense. Maybe it takes a day, maybe a week, maybe 2-3 weeks. At some point, you're going to see the coaching staff try and push Barron to take over that starting gig. But I like to believe that it's your job until it's not. And veterans are going to have the first opportunity to hold on to that starting gig. Recklaw, thank you so much. Ryan, J.K. Dobbins or Nick Chubb? Good question. I would go for Nick Chubb. I think Dobbins would have a longer career for you, but I don't think you're looking for a long-term back if you're signing a veteran right now. You're looking for a guy who can bring you the most for 1 year, in 2025. And I think Nick Chubb, while Dobbins played very well last year and Chubb didn't, we obviously know that when both guys are healthy, Chubb wins 10 times out of 10. And 2 years removed from that injury, well, you saw how Dobbins was when he was 2 years removed from his injury. Why can't Chubb be the same? And when Chubb's on, he's miles ahead of Dobbins. Mo Lester. That got me. Do you think we will make the playoffs? Someone's getting a good laugh right now. I think Moose just got it. Do I think Denver will make the playoffs? They were 7th seed last year. I think they only got better in the offseason. Yeah, I think the Broncos will make the playoffs. I think the AFC West got tougher, though. Year 2 under Harbaugh. Pete Carroll is not going to have any kind of nonsense in Las Vegas, which all they've known is nonsense for the last 5 years in Las Vegas. And the Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs. Juan Luis Martinez. I think the Broncos should pick up Juwan Bentley because we saw that Singleton got injured in Greenlaw, and I don't think Justin Strnad can step up. Yeah, in a video we put out earlier, as long as Nick Chubb didn't get signed and cucked that video, I discussed if there is one last remaining spot for the Broncos roster needs, it would be linebacker because Greenlaw suffered a quad injury. Singleton's coming off a torn ACL. Just a little bit of injury scares before we even get to minicamp. So whether it's Bentley or, any linebacker. I don't know who Juwan Bentley is, but any linebacker would suffice. All right, before we move on to the rest of today's mailbag, quick shout out to our friends over at Fanatics for having this awesome Javonte Barron jersey available at chatsports.com/Barron. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. So if you want to get a Broncos jersey for the rookie after this year's draft, check out the comments and description for a chatsports.com/Barron link to get your paws on these Javonte Barron rookie jerseys. Jace Bear, next one up. Great draft. We have our Sproles and Kamara and Harvey, Michael Thomas and Pat. 1 second. We have our Sproles/Kamara. Okay, you're saying RJ Harvey. All right, I'm going to push back immediately right now. Alvin Kamara in college was a much better receiving back. Harvey could be that. But I'm going to quickly do a fact check right here. Harvey last year, and maybe I'll own myself live on camera and realize I was wrong, but RJ Harvey last year, actually in his entire career, 61 receptions for 720 yards and 4 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara, Tennessee stats. Let's see if I can quickly find this. Sports Reference, help me out. In 2 years, Alvin Kamara had 74 grabs, 683 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Keep in mind, Harvey played 5 seasons of college football. So, Harvey, I think, has receiving upside, but I think Kamara was a much more proven receiving back coming out of Tennessee. Michael Thomas and Pat Bryant. Those are big shoes to fill. I didn't watch a whole lot of Pat Bryant in Illinois, but we'll see if he can be the next slant boy for Denver. Jimmy Graham and Loner. I like that comp, not only because I made a whole video about it, but they both played basketball, and that's the criteria. Do you feel Estime is good enough as a power back or get another running back? I think you got to give the second-year guy from Notre Dame a chance. He had opportunities last year, but he's a rookie, so I'm willing to give him a longer leash before you just cut bait after 1 year. If you do that, you're never going to make any progress because then you won't have Nick Bonito, who didn't have a great rookie season. Danny, what's going on, dude? Open checkbook. If Petey could make one more big-ish free agent signing, who does he take? I don't think there is a really big need for any of the big-ish big fish free agents out there. If I had to go with one, receivers there, and receivers are always fun to add, and you've got some good free agent receivers out there. I think I would go with Keenan Allen. And I say that for a few reasons. One, I really can't think of a better option, and I don't really like the idea of adding a receiver to begin with, but it would be fun to see him beat the Chargers twice for Denver, kind of an opposite of Chris Harris Jr. Two, I think he could be a great possession guy over the middle for Knicks in year 2. And 3, it's Keenan Allen. If you can get even 80% of his usual stuff, you're in a good spot. Danny, thank you for your question, though. Appreciate it. Moving on to our next one. Colin, do you think we should add another middle linebacker? I don't want to be a broken record, but I'm willing to kind of wait and see how OTAs and minicamp play out. Like if Alex Singleton is a little bit behind in his rehab and he's not ready for minicamp and he's not ready for OTAs and we're not really sure if he'll be ready for training camp and Dre Greenlaw missed all the spring. Oh boy. At that point, yeah, I think you do add another middle linebacker. But if you get Singleton back and if Greenlaw misses some OTAs, but he's there for mandatory minicamp 2 months or a month and a half from now in the middle of June, then sure. Like, I think you can be comfortable with that current group. All right, that will do it for us on our mailbag today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, click that like button on your way out, and I'll see everyone next time. RJ Harvey, his last year at UCF, 267 receiving yards, 20 grabs. Kamara at Tennessee, 40 grabs, 392 yards. So I'm not trying to say Harvey's a bad receiving guy, right? But I don't think we can just go, oh, you just got a Pro Bowl running back like Alvin Kamara. I understand that probably the intent was more of the role, maybe not the ceiling, but I still am going to be a little bit more on the skeptical, need to believe it to see it side for that type of pick. All right. Mark says Elijah Moore. Mo, I'm not going to finish your name, though. You think RJ Harvey will become one of the top running backs in the future? You can just call me Mo. Is your name like, it's like John Lester's brother? Mo? It's like, Steve Kerr's son? Nicholas? Yeah. Your parent, if you're, Mo, is your name Mo? Pause Lester? There's someone I forgot his name. He's on the A's. He just got called up, and his name. Who here remembers the scene from the beginning of Horrible Bosses 2 when they display their shower buddy, and they're like, "All right, where can we shower daddy? Like, where can you find this?" And they combined all their names, and like, I know I didn't hear that right. Don't tell me it's actually Mo, because the A's called someone up. And they told their broadcast, hey, you got to have a pause in between the first and last name. I know people came here for Broncos content. I'm here for the Mo Lester content. Okay. Timothy, I never heard any of the first 3 picks we made at 20, 60, and 74. I knew of RJ Harvey because 1% of the reason why I don't like RJ Harvey as much as other people do is back in the fall in my competitive out of work trivia league. We got a question, my team did, which was, who leads the Big 12 in rushing from UCF? I was like, I've got no idea. And it was RJ Harvey. And I was like, screw that guy. Costs us the game. Never heard of him. So I kind of have a grudge against him because he cost me a trivia game. And I knew Pat Bryant because one of my coworkers talks about him, but I always knew him as a a day 3 guy. And then Jahdae Barron I was very familiar with. All right. Do I think RJ will become one of the top running backs? No. Like, I know you want me to say yes. Everyone wants to be told good news. I can't just lie to you every single time and say, yep, that guy's a Hall of Famer. That guy's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? That would be disingenuous. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Grade Denver's draft class. We'll sign off with this right here. So let me know, A, B, C, D, or F. Greatly appreciate everyone for tuning in, for supporting the channel. And if you haven't yet, click the subscribe button on your way out, and we'll see you all next time.